Hello and welcome to today's lesson, which is on pie charts, interpreting them. Okay, so the first thing we need to think about is the fact that a pie chart is a circle which is split up into sections. Okay, now you need to consider the angles that form a triangle, the angles that form a circle. And in a circle, the angles that form a full circle, so a full turn, are 360, and this is really important. So we need to know that a full turn equals 360 degrees because we're going to use this when we find out all these angles here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be looking at is these questions here. So we're just going to be looking at the proportion here of the students who prefer things. So let's make it big so you can have a little look at it. Remember to make sure you get it in your notes. The only way to learn maths is to do it. So which fraction represents the proportion of students who prefer football? Give your answer in its simplest form. So this is quite straightforward to get us started, okay? So we can see that in our pie chart, the angle is equal to 120 degrees. So for football, the angle is equal to 120 degrees. Now, because it's a full turn, if I want to write the proportion of that, that's going to be equal to 120 out of 360. Now, if you want to simplify this and it was on a calculator, we'd literally just put that into our calculator. So 120 over 360, just like that. And then I'll press equals, and it'll give me as a third. Now, if I don't have a calculator, then we have to simplify it down. So I'm going to divide by 10 to get 12 over 36. And what goes into 12 and 36? Well, 12 goes into 12 once. 12 goes into 36 3 times. Perfect. Okay, so a third. So maybe pause now and have a little go at that one on the right-hand side. So pause now and have a little go at that one. So with this one, we're looking at the proportion of people who like rugby. Now you'll notice that rugby's got that little like square in the corner, which means that it's 90 degrees. So rugby is equal to 90 degrees. Spelled rugby wrong there, haven't I? There's my dyslexia coming in. Rugby equals 90 degrees. I don't know if I did spell it wrong the first time. Okay, so rugby is 90 degrees, so the proportion of that is 90 over 360. So again, if you want to simplify this, then we can either type it in our calculator or we'll divide it down. So it's going to be 9 over 36. And how many times does 9 go into 9? Once. How many times does 9 go into 36? 4 times, which is a quarter, which we know that. You can probably pretty much see that it's a quarter anyway, can't you? Okay, so let's have a look at our next question. Third and a quarter answers, brilliant. So this next part is exactly how they will come up if they come up in exam. In fact, both of these are exam questions. So a pie chart gives you the information about the votes received by Paul, Mary and Sanjita. The number of votes in the election was 36. How many votes did Sanjita get? Now we notice here that Paul gets 60, Mary gets that proportion there, and Sanjita gets half, okay? So if there are 36 people in total, and you can see that Sanjita is getting half of these, you need to be finding half of 36. So I will write that down just so we know. So a half of 36 is going to be equal to half times by 36. So half of 30 is 15, half of 6 is 3, 15 and 3 is 18. Just a bit brilliant there, like so. Okay, so I reckon you should be able to do this next part. It is quite straightforward. So maybe pause now and have a little go at that one on the right-hand side. Okay, let's have a look at this one. So George records the scores of the scorers of 120 goals. He started a pie chart to show the results. How many goals did Simon score? Well, Simon there we see has got a quarter of the pie. And so that means we're going to be wanting to find a quarter of 120. So a quarter of that, you can either divide it by 4, or you can type into your calculator, a quarter times by 120, like so. I think this came up on non-calculator, doesn't it? Look, 1F, which means that we will use non-calculator method. So a quarter of this is going to be divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into 120? Well, how many times does 4 go into 12? 4 goes into 12, 4, 8, 12 times, in which case this is going to be equal to 30. Goes into 12 3 times, goes into 120 30 times. Both 1 marks there, so quite a small amount of marks, but that's because they're easy proportions, if that makes sense. A half is quite easy to find, a quarter is quite easy to find. So let's just check those, 18 and 30. So let's have a look at some harder ones now, some trickier ones. So the pie chart below represents the favourite sports of 78 students. Find out how many students prefer football. Now with this one here is example 5. This is more like how we're going to come up, and this one here might come up on a non-calculator. It might actually come up on a calculator. This one here would come up on a calculator paper, but it might also come up on a non-calculator methods. I'm going to use the calculator technique for this one. So if the first thing that I always do with this is I write down the proportion of footballers. So in this case, it's going to be 120 for football out of the full term, which is 360. Super. So I can simplify that. So 120 over 360, which is a third. So what I need to do here is I need to find a third of 78, and you can do that one of 2 ways. Divide 78 by 3, or you can do 1/3 times by 78. I'm going to divide it by 3. How many times 3 go into 78? How many times 3 go into 7? 3, 6 twice, carry the 1. How many times 3 go into 8? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, so 26. So that means there are 26 students who prefer football. Super. Okay, so maybe pause now and have a little go at that one on the right hand side. So pause now and have a little go at that one. Okay, let's have a go at it together. This one here is example 6. So with this one, the proportion of students who like basketball is going to be 60 out of 360. And we want this proportion of 138 students. Okay, so this is, if we're doing it on our calculator, this is all we need to write. So it's 60 out of the 360 times by the total, which in this case is 138. So I'm going to type that straight in just like that. You don't need to simplify it. So 60 over 360 times by 138, just like so. And that's equal to 23 in this case. So 23 students. Now the key is this part here, so writing it as a proportion of 360. And if you know how to do that, then this becomes easy, okay? So let's have a look at some other questions here. Now, we've looked at finding the amount of students or the amount of people or the amount of food in this case. However, this usually comes up in drawing pie charts. But we're going to have a little look at this one. We're going to work now to find out what the angle would be. Okay, so usually what we do is if we've got the angle, then we divide by 360. So your proportion is equal to your angle divided by 360. That's how we did this, wasn't it? Now with this one, it's different. Here, we don't know what the angle is, but we know what the frequency is. Now, we're still going to be working out the proportion, Okay, but the difference here is we know the frequency and not the angle. So we know the frequency and not the angle. So if I want to find out the proportion, I'm not going to divide by 360. I'm going to divide by the total amount of people. So to find the proportion, if you know the frequency, we divide by the total instead. And then, so this is the key part for the proportion. If we then want to work out the angle, we do the proportion times by 360, okay? So here, these are the two which are really important. I'd suggest writing these down in your notes, okay? So your proportion is equal to your angle divided by 360 if you know the angle. Your proportion is equal to your frequency divided by total if you know your frequency. Okay, so let's rub these out and have a go at this question on the right. I'll make it big so you can see it. I'd suggest that you probably get this one down in your notes. Remember, the only way to learn maths is to do it. So 3 marks for this. Let's have a go at it together. So we know that there's 60 people. And we're thinking about p's this time, and it wants the angle. So for p's, the proportion is going to be 24 p's out of the total, which in this case is 60. But if I want the angle, I times by a full turn, which in this case is 360. Let's do the carrots next. So for the carrots, it's going to be the amount, which is 16, divided by the total, which is 60, times by, again, 360 if I want that angle. So this is the proportion times by 360. And the last one, the mushrooms, is equal to your frequency, which is 20, divided by your total, which is 60. And if you want the angle, I times by 360. So let's work out what all of them are. I'm going to put these straight into my calculator. Notice this is on paper 3, so it was on a calculator paper. So it's going to be 24 over 60 times by 360, which in this case is equal to 144. This next one is going to be 16 over 60 times by 360, which is equal to 96. And the last one is 20 over 60. I will show you what it looks like. Times by 360, so 20 over 60 times by 360, which in this case is equal to 120. If you want to check these are right, they should sum up to the full term, which is 360. So 144 plus 96 plus 120 is 360, which is nice to know that I've got it right. Now, if you were doing this one here, then probably ask you to go ahead and then draw that. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just doing interpreting, so we're going to leave that there. So, pause now and have a little go at that one on the right-hand side. Very, very similar. It's asking for the angle. So pause now and have a go at that one. Okay, let's have a go at this one together. So, exactly the same. What difference with this one is we don't know what the total is just yet, so we need to work out that first. So this one here was example 8, I think it is. So the total is equal to 11 plus 17 plus 8. Is it on calculator? Yes, it is. 11 plus 17 plus 8, which is equal to 36. Okay, so with this one here, my burger is equal to 11 over 36, times by 360. Now, if this was on non-calculator, you'd probably just times the top and bottom by 10 to get it out of 360, if you want to do that one. Pi is equal to 17 out of 36 times by 360. And hot dog is equal to 8 out of 36 times by 360. So let's have a go at those ones. 11 over 36 times by 360 is equal to 110. This one here, well, I can pretty much see what's happening here, because this one at the moment is out of 36, but I want it out of 360. So if I times the top and bottom by 10, it'll be 170. And I'll times this one, top and bottom by 10. If you type in the calculator, you get the same, which is going to be 80 there, like so. How can I check this is right? Well, 110 plus 170 plus 80 is equal to that 360, which is what I'm looking for. Brilliant. So let's just check those answers. Super, brilliant. Okay, so there's one more type of question which comes up, and I think this one is probably the most common question for pie charts, unless they're asking you to draw it, and you've got to interpret all of it. So this one here is trickier, okay? This one here is, you're not going to use the total, you're not going to use the 360, you've got to spot in this one what the trend is and what the proportion is between the frequency and the angle, okay? So, with this one here, let's make it big so you can see it. I'll go through this first one for you. So some children were asked to name their favourite flavour of ice cream. The pie chart shows some of the information of their answers. Mint, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. So, they've given you a table here, and then you have to spot that the number of children and the angle is 90 degrees. Okay? So then we need to work out what the rest of it is. Alright, okay. So with this one here, there's a few things we need to think about. Okay, let's try and draw a little table so we can see it, okay? So flavour, and what have we got? We've got vanilla, mint, strawberry and chocolate. We've got our number of children, which in this case is 12. We don't know what this one is. We know this one is 14, and we don't know what this one is, and this is 90. This one here is 45. We don't know this one, but we do know this one here. So we've got to fill in the gaps, okay? Now, with this one, what we've got to spot is, there's a few different ways you can do it. This one here, I think, is probably the easiest one, because everything is in proportion. Sorry, probably should put angle there. Okay, all of these are in proportion. So if this, there's a few different ways you can do it. You can use a calculator. You can use the calculator for this one. The first thing I'd probably spot with this one is that actually this one here is 45. Now if this, whatever you do to the angle, you've got to do to the children as well. So if this one here is half, so half of 90 is 45, then half of this one is going to be 6. Okay? So that one there must be 6. Now for this one here, notice, how does 120 relate to this one? Now, I think this one's pretty easy. You can, if you want, break this down to 30 and then go back to 120 if you wanted to. But actually, because we've got our calculator, that's the way I'd do it if this was non-calculator. But because this is a calculator one, what I'm going to suggest is we see how much bigger the 12 is to the 90. So what is my multiplier here? So let's work this out. So the way you do this is I would do 90 divided by 12. Now if I do 90 divided by 12, my multiplier is 7.5. Which means that if I times 12 by 7.5, I will get my angle. In this case, it is 90. So you can now use this multiplier to either get to your angle or get to your number of children, because everything I said, as I said, is in proportion. So we already know that this one's 6, but I can prove that if I'm going from left to right to left, I'm going to be divided by 7.5. So divided by 7.5. So 45 divided by 7.5 in this case is 6, which makes sense because we know that it's half, don't we? So this one here is 6. So then how would I work out the angle? Well, this way, I'm going from left to right, so I need to times by 7.5. So 14 times by 7.5, which in this case is 105. And then going from this way is divided by 7.5. So 120 divided by 7.5, which in this case is 16. Super. How can I check this is right? Well, I check this is right because the angle should sum to 360. So 90 plus 45 plus 105 plus 120 is equal to 360. Super. Okay, so pause now and have a little go at this one on the right hand side. Now this one here on the right hand side is a little bit different because you haven't got a matching pair in this one, but what you do know is the total. So let's have a go at that little one on the right hand side. Now, as I said, this one here is trickier, okay? Because you don't have a matching pair to do what I've just done in that last one, but we do know the total, and we also do know that a full circle sums to 360. So it's all about proportions working forward and working backwards, okay? So this one is tough, it's 3 marks. It was on the foundation paper, question 15A. So let me draw a little table of this. So we've got 42, blank, 5 and blank. We've got the size of the angle, which in this case is blank, and then 138, blank, and then 81. And this is the activity. This one here is the number of people. Super. So this one here is your swimming pool, this one here is your beach, this one here is your lounge, and this one here is the sightseeing. Now, you might think, I don't know what I'm doing here, but it's just referring back to those original questions where we were doing, we knew the number of people and we knew the total, so we could work out the angle, or we knew the angle and we had to work back and find the number of people. It's just working both ways. So if I want to work out the angle, it's going to be, you write the proportion times by 360. So your proportion of this one is going to be, let's write down swimming pool so you can see it. So swimming pool is going to be 42 out of the total amount of people, which in this case is 120, times by the angle is what I want, so 360. So on our calculators, 42 over 120 times by 360, which is 126. Brilliant. So for the beach, I'm actually working out the number of people. So I'm dealing with the angle. So if I'm dealing with the angle, it's 138 out of 360 times by the total amount of people, which is 120. So 138 over 360 times by my amount of people this time, so it's the proportion of angles times by the amount of people, which in this case is 46. Let's start putting these in so I don't get confused. So 126, 46 there. This one here is going to be, again, I'm dealing with people now to get to the size, so it's the lounge, which is 5 out of 120 times by the full term, which is 360. So 5 out of 120 times by 360, which in this case is 15. So it's just basically working both ways with each of these. And then the last one is the sightseeing, which is 81, which is my angle. So out of 360 times by the amount of people, which is 120. So 81 over 360 times by 120, which is equal to 27, like so. So this one here is 27. Brilliant. So we're working like both ways there, which is a little bit trickier, because do I divide by 360? Do I divide by the total? But just remember, if you're dealing with the amount of people, you're dividing by the total. If you're dealing with the angle, you're dividing by 360. Perfect. So let's just check those answers. 126, 46, 15, and 27 for that one, and then 6, 105, and 16. How could we have checked this actually? I didn't do that, did I? I should have. I could check this by adding them up. So 126 plus 138 plus 15 plus 81, which gives a total of 360. And if I add these up, remember that total should be 120. Perfect. So, here's some questions. So I'll make it big for you. So pause now and have a little go at those questions. Pause now and have a go at those. There are 2 worksheets here. Okay, so have a go at this next worksheet. Notice that all of these are past paper questions, okay? Okay, and here are your answers. So mark those in green. Mark them in green. Okay, so thank you for watching the videos on pie charts interpreting. Do make sure you're having a go at these questions, because remember, the only way to learn maths is to do it, and have a lovely day.